New poll is showing some of the top things that parents should be worried about. The national poll on children's health shows that childhood obesity is a top concern for most parents these days. 60% of parents responding to the poll say that they are worried about it, but bullying and drug abuse were not far behind, coming in second and third place. Internet safety and child abuse and neglect also round out the top 5. So joining us this morning with ways that parents can deal with those concerns is Carmella Prescott. She is a licensed mental health coordinator, counselor. Thank you so much for being here. So childhood obesity, let's talk about that one first, because that was the big concern on this poll. Why are parents so concerned about that?
Well, it has an effect on health and safety overall, future health, insurance costs, a lot of different effects on kids. And socially, it can have an effect on kids, too. If you have an obese child, they get picked on, and then they have to worry about bullying.
And what can parents do about that?
Well, one is make sure your kids get active. At Daniel Kids, we have found a lot of times kids are sitting around playing video games and sitting indoors. So get the kids active, at least an hour of activity a day. And
you just mentioned bullying, a big concern.
Yes.
How does a parent know if their child is being bullied?
Well, usually you have a change in behavior. They're avoiding the situation, which is usually at school. So they tend to avoid going to school. They might have fears and nightmares. So when you notice your child having a change in behavior and avoidance, you want to discuss it with them and find out what's going on.
And how do you start the discussion? Because it seems like for parents, that's the toughest part.
Yeah, sometimes you can use your own personal experience. Say, you know, when I was a kid, I had this girl that would pick on me and pull my hair, and she was a bit of a bully. Do you have any concerns or anything like that happening to you?
And another thing parents definitely are concerned about is drug abuse, and one of the most difficult things is being able to spot that drug abuse. How do parents go about that?
Any change in behavior, if you see your child losing their appetite, being secretive, just even their whole appearance changes through the effect of drugs.
And you talked about internet safety on this list. Are there concerns about predators here? What's that all about?
Yes, internet safety has been a big concern lately as more and more electronics are being used by kids and have access to the internet. So parents have to be worried that their kids are not sharing too much information about themselves, not personal information, their home address, phone number, and have to be careful that who they're talking to may not be who they think it is. They might be thinking they're talking to a 14-year-old girl or boy and find out it's an older person who is actually trying to find them.
So what can parents do about that?
Well, parents need to make sure they set rules regarding the internet. One, make sure they turn off the location button on their internet so that predators or anybody can't know exactly where they are.
And what else can parents do with respect to internet safety? Because that is just a big problem that a lot of people are dealing with.
Well, one, you need to set rules. A lot of times kids, I ask them at Daniel Kids, what's going on? What are your rules for the internet? And they're like, we don't have one. So I always say set specific rules and post them. For example, what sites they can go to, what they can't go to. Let them know about sharing too much information. Also monitor what they're viewing. Put computers, stuff in public areas in your living room, in your home, where you can look at what they're doing.
Excellent advice. Child abuse or neglect also on the list of concerns with parents. Specifically, what are parents concerned about with child abuse and neglect?
Well, it's interesting because child abuse and neglect is still in the news more than it used to be, which is kind of good because before it was hidden. So parents need to watch for, or neighbors need to watch for changes in children's behavior, whether they're angry, sad, depressed, if they're not performing as well as school as they used to, any changes in behavior.
And of course, some of the people doing the abuse and the neglect are people that are sometimes trusted by families.
Right. So you really need to monitor what's going on and checking in with your kids, especially if you see a change around a specific person. You might want to ask what's going on, what's different.
Some great advice. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. We really appreciate it. And if you miss any of those tips, you can find this whole segment on the Morning Show page of news4jax.com.